Happy Wednesday. Wow, time sure is flying. It is February 2nd, 2011, or Groundhog Day. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Hope you had a lovely day, albeit frozen from what I'm looking at here on the text chat. But, you know, it's just part of the course that is necessary, so use this time wisely. Speaking of wisely, we have a very bright and wise young man tonight joining us to talk about soul travel. E.A. Koetting, his website is Lilah.org, and that is spelled LEILAH.org, and we were blessed to have him with us last year talking about spirituality and Black Magick, and I mean the conversation was just amazing. I think we left off when we started to talk about soul travel and what karma really is and really isn't, so we're definitely going to get into that tonight. Also good news, he is with a new publisher, so his book Evoking Eternity, which was previously sold out, is now going to be re-released March 14th, so they are taking pre-orders, and if I were you, I would definitely sign up for that, because we've missed a few of his good ones, like The Spider and the Green Butterfly. I don't know, maybe we can find one on Amazon for $1,500 or something one of these days, but EA has spent the last 15-plus years studying and practicing and immersing himself in the spiritual arts, not restricted to any particular paradigm, but finding the answers to the greatest questions in every faith and spiritual path, from the holy to the blasphemous, from the heights of the Vedas and teachings of the masters to the secret rituals of Black Magick. He grew up in a Mormon or LDS family, and went on the other side, spending time with the Temple of Blood and Order of Nine Angles, and he is now here to teach others what he has learned on his path. And really just a bright young man. It's such a pleasure to have him here. He also teaches seminars. He's written a number of books and working on a couple more, another one to be released in October, Ipsissimus, which is about the realization of the self, and exactly about the topic we're talking about tonight, soul travel and mysticism. So we're going to have him talk a little bit about that with us as well. But it is that time, so we are going to be right back after this short break, so stay tuned. E.A. Koetting here on Truth Brigade Radio. Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. If you would like to join us for the text chat tonight, that's over at TruthBrigade.com. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to give us a call at 402-237-2525. That's 402-AFR-2525. Our special guest tonight, E.A. Koetting, continuing the discussion on soul travel. It is so good to have you back here tonight, E.A. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I love to be on with you and talk to you. We get into some pretty interesting areas.
Awesome. Well, I'm blessed. Definitely. We're all blessed to have you back because, you know, I appreciate you so much, EA, because of your experience and the way you're really out there teaching people what you have learned. You're obviously not limited to, or stuck in some box and, I know everything and this is the path. And, you're educating people about all of it. And what I especially like about it is that you've kind of taken the fear factor out of it. So I remember when we first scheduled you, we actually got some email like, oh my gosh, you're going to talk about Black Magick? And, people were a couple we're, I guess, kind of offended, like, how dare you talk about that? And it's like, well, wait a minute. First of all, I mean, we've already learned magic is just intent. And if, you're going to sit here crying and whining about people using it against you, why not learn about it? And, we find that we're creating magic or casting spells basically every time we open our mouth. So I think it's just so wonderful to have you join us with your wisdoms and insights and be so honest about it. As well, last time I had you on, we started to talk about karma. And there were lots of questions in the text chat, and I had many myself, but and as I've told you before, I mean, just because we know everything is a lie doesn't mean we know what if there is really the one truth, we don't know what that is, or I'll just speak for myself, I don't. But what I do know is that we're told about the so-called natural laws, karma in particular, just doesn't seem to fit my experiences, or maybe it's just my tiny little perception of this vast universe. So if you don't mind, can we kind of revisit karma and have you, I'd love to hear your definition or your explanation on what karma is.
Yeah, when you talk about natural law, it's a really interesting thing because the idea of karma is indeed a natural law. It's a principle that really runs through these lower planes, much like gravity does here on this earth. But both can be broken. I mean, people can levitate. We can break out of the gravitational pull, and so the solidity of that law is really questionable. The issue that I have with karma as it's understood today is that it's only been maybe 60 years that our present concept of karma has been standing, which is the law of three, that you do something to somebody and it comes back to you 3 times as strongly. And as you and I were discussing, that really puts into question the innocent that are suffering on this earth, and the evil people that get away with being evil people. Mm-hmm. And if you look at where the whole idea of karma came from, and actually, indeed, a lot of our spiritual knowledge and understandings come from the Sanskrit texts, which are the Vedas, the Upanishads, the texts that come from India, from Hinduism. And in that, karma is not understood as this law that you do something wrong and you get smacked in the butt with a similar action sometime in the future, but instead it's an idea of attachment. That if you do something that's whether it's a positive or a negative action, if you become attached to that action emotionally and psychologically, that you start pulling things towards yourself that you might not want to have in your life. I mean, let's say you do something that we in our Western society would consider evil, and you attach emotions to that, negative emotions. You attach fear or shame, guilt, anger, any of these negative emotions. What you're basically doing is you're becoming a black hole that's going to start pulling all of that towards yourself. So
that makes a lot of sense, because I've noticed even in my own life, and it's not necessarily, even if you're not directly attached to the situation itself, you can be attached to a certain outcome. And I've found how, these attachments lead to soul loss, don't they? Because that's when we're giving our power away, and sometimes we blind ourselves by, if we have this certain view or perception or attachment to a certain outcome, we tend to just kind of see that everywhere we go, and we might only notice the negative, or, so we could say, see, it's, I have bad karma, and, kind of blame it on something outside of ourselves and not truly learn how to rid ourselves of those attachments.
Right. Well, and if you look at even positive attachments, if you look at the path of the Kaula and the yogi from India, which are the two different paths where you consider, right hand and left hand. They're those who are actually working through the spiritual systems. The main idea is to become non-attached, where you recognize that all things around you are Maya or illusion, and that you really don't need to get attached to anything here, because even if you have positive attachment, here's what happens is you start triggering what's called the law of reversed effort. That the more effort you put towards any goal, the less likely you are to achieve it. So if you've ever noticed, like if you don't have money and you really, really, really want money, and all you can think about is, God, I need money and I need money, you're basically just putting out all of this energy, and you're going to start working against yourself. Now, where ritual comes into play and the occult is that you're taking all of that desire that you would normally stretch out over days, weeks, or months, and you're putting into like a 15-minute or a half-hour episode where you get all of that desire out of yourself, you push it out into the universe, and then basically you've done something with all of that emotion, and you no longer carry it with you, you're no longer obsessed with it, and so you withdraw psychologically and emotionally from the outcome, where you become non-attached, and then that which you're desiring can just naturally flow into your life.
Okay, so basically, by releasing our attachments to whatever outcome or this hold we have on the material or this world or whatever it is, we're kind of alchemizing, I guess, within, you mentioned ritual. It's kind of a way of alchemizing those emotions.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it's important to note, though, that a lot of emphasis right now in kind of popular culture is on stuff like The Secret and this idea of the law of attraction and whatever. Well, that's only half right, because if you just go around not caring about what's going to happen to you or going, hey, everything's going to work out, you can very well find yourself homeless and completely destitute. If you instead build up the desire, you release that desire in a ritual format, and basically what you're doing is you're causing a spiritual explosion where you're going to send a shock wave out into the universe, and then when that shock wave comes back in, when it returns, it's going to carry your desire with you.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. So let me ask you this, though. You mentioned the law of three. Now, we know that, as you mentioned, we can alchemize our feelings or our needs or desires and let the universe send it back to us or attract it that way. But, is it necessarily so that if you do one good thing, three good things are going to come back to you, or one bad thing, three bad things are going to come back to you? Can you give us a little insight into that law as well?
Yeah, that's not a law at all. That's silly. This is what that is.
Okay. Yeah, it's just another one of those things that we're taught. Obviously what we were taught about karma isn't true. And, we keep hearing of these other laws. Maybe it's the law of three. Some religions might call it 10, or 77 or even more. So what is can you talk to us about the principles on our efforts and abilities to attract that which we desire?
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and address basically what's understood as karma, which is that law of three, that you do something and three times of something similar is going to come back to you. And the reason that's so silly is because that's a really new idea. If you look at the basis of the yogic system, which is the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna are traveling. Krishna being the embodiment of godhood on this plane, and Arjuna being this basically a warlord that's riding off to war. And they have this conversation, and Arjuna is caught up into a vision where he basically all of creation, all knowledge and truth is laid out before him. And at the end of this, he goes, I can't go and kill my brother knowing what I know now. And Krishna, the embodiment of godhood in this plane, tells him, no, you need to, because this is your dharma. This is what you have to do. So you need to go kill them. Not only kill the warriors that you're going to kill, but go back to their homes and kill the women and children. plow the fields with salt, so nothing will ever grow there again, and utterly destroy them. But in doing this, have no attachment to your actions. And so you're looking at that, and that's, wow, I mean, that is intense. And so it's not that you do one bad thing and then bad things will come to you, but that if you're attached to whatever you're doing, whether that's something you might consider good or bad, it's that attachment that's going to start drawing negativity to you.
Okay, all right. And I mean, I guess, we're using the words good and bad or good and evil and such, and I guess technically on the grand scheme of things, that's all relative.
Right. I mean, if you really look at the human race from a universal perspective, we're basically termites. I mean, we don't look at termites and go, oh, that one's evil and that one's good. That's just ridiculous. So really, we're just existing, and we've created these paradigms of good and evil, and they really don't exist outside of our social structures. If you look at what's good for us here in the Western culture, that may be very, very not good in other cultures, other societies. Aleister Crowley put it as if you're wearing a spacesuit on the moon, that's good. If you're wearing that same spacesuit in the Sahara Desert, that's evil. So you've really got to take it case by case,
Well, yeah, some religions, you can't dance, that's evil. And then other religions, I mean, that's the preferred method to honor their spirit or creator.
Exactly. So, yeah, the good versus evil argument is really, once again, it kind of gets down to just outright silliness. And if you have personal, I mean, I have a code of ethics that is really strong with me, and people who know me are just flabbergasted that I have issues with honesty, where if I find myself being dishonest, I correct myself immediately, and I'm ashamed that I've allowed myself to do that. And people go, wait a minute. You've used black magic to severely harm or kill people, and that doesn't bother you. But telling a fib does, and it's like, well, yeah, this is my personal ethical, where I'm headed ethically and morally for myself, that I've found that's just not something I will do. So, live by your own personal ethics and morals, figure out what those are yourself, and live by those. But, I mean, it's not an idea of a universal good or evil.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very, very good explanation. I appreciate you going into that with us again. But I want to ask you about some of the new changes before we get too involved in the topic of soul travel, because you have a new publisher now, and that is Leilah.org. I'm going to spell that LEILAH.org, and of course I'll be posting that and other links in the text chat at TruthBrigade.com. But as we found out, Evoking Eternity, which was previously sold out, is going to be re-released, and then you have another book coming out in October. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Evoking Eternity was basically it's a book that the first five chapters teach evocation, and this is a subject that most books barely even can scratch. Is the subject of evocation. So the first 5 chapters will teach you how to evoke successfully.
Okay.
The remaining, I think it's the remaining 6 chapters teach how to basically take those basic principles and push them beyond any limits, where you're evoking not just one angel or demon, but you're evoking legions, and where you're able to evoke multiple entities around you for one goal, or to evoke without the trappings of a circle and a triangle and all these occult systems, and then going as far as evoking to full visible manifestation before you a god. So, I mean, it takes it as far as you could possibly go.
So that's an Evoking Eternity. Okay. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because recently I met someone on the chat who was, I forget exactly what we were talking about, but something to do with either talking to angels or demons or et cetera. And, oh, well, I don't believe demons or any of that's real. I've been practicing this and trying to evoke and summons, so-and-so, and I've never seen any results. What would you say to that person?
And that's actually something I hear quite a bit. That's probably the most common comment from people that don't really believe this system is, hey, I've tried it and it doesn't work. And people even try it for years and years and really get into it. Well, going back to what you'd call, natural laws, there are principles which allow something like evocation to work.
Okay, I'm sorry, EA, hold that right there. We will continue this discussion when we return after this short break. Leila.org, that's LEILAH.org, EA Koetting here on Truth Brigade Radio. All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com with our special guest tonight, E.A. Koetting, joining us to talk about soul travel. His website is Leila.org. That is LEILAH.org. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to give us a call, 402-237-2525. And if you'd like to join us on the text chat, that's over at TruthBrigade.com. Speaking of the text chat, it looks like we've ignited a little controversy here. Do it, don't do it. Let's see how. So if you could, EA, please continue, and maybe you can share with us some of the elementary principles of evocation.
Yeah, in the first chapter of Evoking Eternity, I start this book off with a bang where basically right away I give what I have termed the elementary principles of evocation. These are what you could say are maybe the natural laws that allow something like evocation to work. Mm-hmm. The first of these is preparatory immersion, which is basically it's what many have called in the occult subjective synthesis, where you basically start studying the spirit that you're going to be calling in an intellectual way, where you get to know the spirit intellectually, where you really attune your mind to them. You figure out what their attributes are, what the characteristics are, and this could take place over a few minutes, or in my case, several times. I've done a few weeks of study into what I'm going to be evoking, just to kind of attune my mind to what I'm about to do, as well as to really make sure I know what I'm doing, because this is a very, very potent art, and so if you just call something up and you really don't know what you're calling on, you could be opening a can of worms for yourself.
Oh yeah.
So the next principle is use or development of a working system. First of all, it's got to be a system that actually works, that has been proven to work. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn has a system of evocation that works rather well. Various orders and lodges that exist now have very good systems. The Ordo Templi Orientis does as well. And if you can get your hands on those, which is really, really easy to do, just about every bookstore will have books on these various systems and how to use them. And then I've outlined a system that I know for sure works in Evoking Eternity. You've really got to use that system, because there are keys to power that are in these systems. A lot of what you're going to find in a lot of spiritual systems is BS. But there's this 1% of gold that really can't be done without. And so unless you're able to develop your own system that works through your own experience, you really need to fall back on those systems that do work, because it does have that 1% of gold.
Mm-hmm.
And a good part of what is is in those systems is what I call attainment of omnipotence. The idea is that as a human being, we're extremely limited in what we're capable of doing. A human being, the person who needs food to stay alive and needs shelter and all these things where we're really frail, we of our own power aren't able to bring a demon up in front of us and command it what to do. There's a power that's really beyond what goes on inside of our brains that's capable of this. And a lot of people would consider that maybe your God self or your higher self, or even an external entity like a deity that you might devote yourself to. Whatever it is, that essence needs to be brought into you to the fullest degree possible. And this is another thing that I give instructions for in Evoking Eternity, is how to get to that point where when you're performing an evocation and you're able to invoke that sense of omnipotence, your physical body becomes extremely weak, and you'll feel yourself getting dizzy, and maybe just like you just want to black out. You just want to completely give yourself over to it and black out, and you're basically going to hang on a thread to remain conscious, and that's a sure sign that indeed it's no longer your mind or your body that's doing the work, but it's a greater force that's working through you. And that's absolutely essential to being able to perform an evocation. If you're standing up and shouting the words of the evocation, of conjuration, and whatever, you probably haven't reached that point of the attainment of omnipotence, because honestly, when you get to that point, just whispering the conjuration and the incantations is difficult because your body is so weakened.
Okay, someone in the chat posed a question. What if you have soul loss?
No, what if you have soul loss? I'm not exactly sure.
I mean, I guess he's asking, is all of this going to be possible if we've experienced some kind of soul loss or soul fragmentation?
I think just about everybody in the world at this point has some sort of soul loss.
Yeah.
So really, yeah, it is possible. But I mean, if we look at that concept of soul loss and that we've lost a part of our power and our recognition of our own divinity, that basically summarizes everybody that's alive. And what do you need to do to get that back? And I would say to involve yourself in your own godhood as much as possible.
Exactly. I mean, just because and I agree with you, EA, probably everyone on the planet has experienced some type of soul loss, but that doesn't mean it has to stay lost. We have the power to reclaim whatever attachments or losses, et cetera, there are, and as EA said, realize the godhood within. But, yeah, good question. Okay, so continuing with the evoking, and there's also a few comments in the chat like, wow, this sounds scary. Why would we want to do this? Can you kind of talk about that as well?
Yeah, let me go ahead and address that right off the bat. Why would you want to do this? This is a big question right there, because really you are putting yourself into direct contact with an entity that is completely objectively real. You're calling it from another plane and another world into this one in front of you. It's terrifying. Yeah, it is. However, that is also the power of it, that you're calling an entity. I mean, I'm 30 years old, and I've gained a bit of knowledge over my 30 years. But let's take an entity that's 30 million years old, and has the power to extinguish a life with the snap of its fingers, or to heal the sick with a blink of an eye. That kind of power and that kind of knowledge it could be invaluable to somebody who first of all might want to have something happen in the physical world that they can't do themselves, or that wants to gain knowledge that's not accessible from any physical route. So for me, the gaining of knowledge is the main reason that I personally perform evocation, because I can speak to these spirits and I'll go in with a list of questions and I'll interrogate them and really figure out, what's going on around me, what's going on in the spiritual realms. You can even look into the political and religious goings on and really get solid answers that are actually verifiable.
Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. I think maybe people are expressing fear because we're told, oh, no, don't touch a Ouija board or take ayahuasca or whatever, because demons are going to enter you and you're going to be possessed. But that's not necessarily true either. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Possession is actually extraordinarily rare, and it's hyped up that people get possessed and left and right is what we're thinking. And the Catholic Church is sending, they've got an army of exorcists now to go exorcise people who are possessed by demons. And really, I have experienced possession myself. That's a fundamental tenet of the Vodun religion, which I'm an initiated Hungan in. And possession is a really kind of difficult thing to do, because you have to 100% fully and consciously give over your will to the spirit that's coming into you.
Yeah, so it's not like they could just do it without your permission.
No, not at all.
Exactly.
That's no. You really have to open that door and fully invite them in.
So if they enter with your permission or your invitation, then it's safe to say that it's also the same, you would use the same method to get rid of them, right? If you really didn't want it.
Yes, but there's a trick to that, because when you're under the state of possession, you start to lose your better judgment. I mean, it's kind of like saying, if you can take a drink of alcohol, then you can just as easily stop drinking alcohol whenever you want. You can drive home. Sure, but after a few drinks, you're not going to have that state of mind anymore where you're going to want to. So with possession, if you're possessed for a day, for 2 days, it's going to be an interesting experience. After that, it starts to get really scary, because you start to lose control over your mind, basically. And so what I always tell people, and this is also a strong admonition in Haitian Vodun, is that you have somebody at hand who is not possessed, who basically, like, you can compare it to your designated driver, and they're going to be watching you. They're going to make sure you don't get too out of control, and at an appointed time, they're going to basically invite the spirit to leave you and push you to do that. They're not going to necessarily exorcise the spirit, because if you've basically made that pact and you've invited that spirit in, it needs to be you need to revoke that invitation, but that there is a bit of prompting that might need to happen to do that.
Okay, someone just asked on the chat, what about when they hang around uninvited?
Now, hanging around is a different thing than possession. That's with the Catholic Order of Exorcists, that's what's called obsession, when the spirit becomes obsessed with you and hangs around your place, and that's really kind of a tricky area, because you can basically you have done something to invite them into your home. And inviting a spirit into your home or into your environment is much different than inviting it to completely take over your mind and your emotions and your body. It's basically a completely different degree of invitation. But
aren't spirits of all forms or types, malevolence or benevolence, I mean, aren't they kind of always hanging around?
Yeah, if you there was a guy I was talking to when I very first got on this path, that he said, be careful, because if you were to see what's around us and what's flying around in the skies and what surrounds us that can't be seen, you would never leave your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so true because if you open up your spiritual eyes, if you open up your Ajna chakra and you look into the world around you, you can definitely see that we are overcrowded with invisible life forms and even things that are not embodiments, but just like blobs of energy.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I see. Yeah, they're everywhere. So I guess the bottom line is, if maybe someone or something is kind of hanging around, we have the power to tell it it's not welcome if in fact it's not, right?
Right. Now, and K-Girl also asked, what about the children that are visited? And that was the point I was going to bring up right next. So it is, I have a 6-year-old daughter, and ever since she was, able to talk, she would tell us about having seeing bears and big frogs in her room, and then that later turned into, monsters, and now she recognizes that, hey, there are spirits here. These things just kind of hang around, and if you have a strong emotional reaction to them, they'll cling on to that more strongly.
Oh, because they kind of feed off of that. They can't experience emotions like we do.
Right.
Okay, all right, that makes a lot of sense, EA, but it is that time again, so stay tuned, everyone. We will be right back. EA Koetting on Truth Brigade Radio. All right, we're raising a little hell tonight here, Truth Brigade, on AmericanFreedomRadio.com with our special guest tonight, E.A. Koetting. And I promise we're going to get to the original topic of soul travel. But, I thank you for explaining all of this in depth. And, of course, we left off on how to rid spirits that we might not want hanging around us.
Right. Yeah. Like I said before the break, that there's if you have a strong emotional reaction to the spirits, they're going to cling on to that. They're going to gravitate to that and feed on it. They're basically going to know that they have some kind of control, and they're going to just completely use that. So now, if you're a 2-year-old or a 6-year-old kid and you see this monster in your room. Or you feel the funny presence of something there. Even as an adult, you can't really just shut that off and go, "Oh, I'm not going to be afraid," or "I'm not going to worry about it." So what I've taught my daughter, and this works perfectly for her, and this will work for just about anybody, is to focus on your breath and see that there's light all around you. With your eyes closed, you can feel the light, you can feel the peace and the love of it. And then as you breathe in, inhale that light into your body until you feel like you're filled with light. And then you can just stretch your hand out towards wherever the spirit or obnoxious thing might be, and just command it, leave. You're not welcome here. And it definitely will. So. Yeah,
absolutely. And thanks for sharing that practical advice with us.
Yeah. And people will... You'll see people a lot that, especially who are in the Christian faith, who will, say, in the name of Jesus, I command you, and whatever. And the issue with a lot of that is that there's an intense amount of fear. There's all these emotions wrapped up as they're saying it. You can hear it in their voice. But, if you were to, just focus yourself with peace, it really doesn't matter what you say. You can say, in the name of SpongeBob, I command you, and if you're at complete peace, it's going to work.
SpongeBob. Okay, that's great. And it's true. Don't ever forget the power within. So, okay, so all right. So we were talking about evoking and some of the elementary principles. And someone asked on the text chat, what about, he said, what about talking to dead people? Can you talk a little bit about that?
In my second book, Works of Darkness, I kind of outlined my understanding of what happens after you pass away, after your body dies. And basically, you've got a manifold being, which is that you have you have this physical body, and then you also have an astral body, and a mental body, a causal body, an ethereal body, and then somewhere in this mix, in this Pandora's box, you've got your soul, which is your eternal essence, that's your true self. And that soul is going to migrate to another existence, and whether that's in a reincarnated form or in a higher dimension or whatever, it's going to go somewhere else. So what's left behind are these other bodies, these subtle bodies, and just like your physical body will be put into the ground, and you'll have a skeleton there. You'll also have an astral skeleton, or an astral form that's left behind, or a psychic impression. I compare it to throwing a rock into the water, and you see the ripples come out from that. Well, those ripples are going to continue. They're going to be fainter and fainter as you move through the various planes of existence, but they're still going to be there. And so one of those faint ripples is going to be an astral or a psychic form that basically stays behind. And that's a lot of why people will see the deceased doing things that they did in life, dressed the way that they were dressed in life.
Yes. And they look younger, in my experience. I mean, they're not like as we remembered them maybe when they died at 80 or 90 or whatever. They seem to be young and vibrant and beautiful and happy.
Yeah. Well, and there's this like hellish scenario of seeing the dead doing like a 15-minute cycle of one action over and over and over again. And it's like, God, that's torture. Well, that's not the eternal soul of the person. That's their psychic impression. And so what you can do is you can use some of the techniques of evocation to call one of those, it's like a shadow, where you can call one of those ripples back in front of you and get some knowledge from it. You can ask some questions. You can maybe get closure, but you're not talking to the eternal soul of that person. You're talking to their astral remnants.
Okay. Someone just asked in the chat, can I ask you if you've ever seen yourself in the dream state, and if so, what do you think that means?
Well, if I've ever seen myself in the dream state, when you see yourself, I'm reading the chat room, when you see yourself, the kingdom of heaven is open to you. Well, that's interesting. I mean, one thing, this does get me onto the topic of soul travel, which I love.
Yes.
Is that when I'll teach people to sit in their chair and project their consciousness to an object across the room, and you would do that through an exhalation where it does take. Oh, we're gonna have to come back to that. Yes,
we are. Leave us hanging. And I also mentioned, not only do you teach us in your books, you also offer personal consultations. So, anyways, it's that time. We're going to be right back. Stay tuned, everyone. E.A. Koetting here on Truth Brigade Radio. All right, welcome back. Top of the second hour here tonight on Truth Brigade Radio with E.A. Koetting, talking about soul travel tonight. And once again, the website is Leilah.org. That's LEILAH.org. Okay, but getting back, you were talking about soul travel and seeing yourself.
Right, yeah. When you learn how to project yourself, your consciousness outside of your body, one of the first tests that I'll have my students do, and that I'll do often, is turn around and look at myself, look at my body sitting there, my body is breathing and whatever, and then to keep yourself out of your body, and it's really a force of will to be able to go against that current, because once you see your body, it causes what's called astral whiplash, which is that it pulls your body quickly, or your soul or your other bodies quickly back into your physical body, and so the test is kind of fight that, and if you can look at your physical body without you inside of it, and stay outside of your body, then basically you're going to be able to travel for as long as you want to, and go to some pretty insane realms and dimensions in that state. So seeing your body in that way is definitely pretty intense. But also there's the experience that I've had where I've seen myself while scrying, where I'm looking into a black-backed mirror and trying to see spirits or see the future or whatever I'm looking for. And there have been a few instances where I've seen myself in the future, where I've looked in and basically see, and the mirror is not facing me. The mirror is facing the ceiling, so I'm not looking at a physical reflection, but my face comes into the mirror, and it's been really a really interesting experience every time. A few times it didn't come out exactly. I didn't look like it showed I would at that time. When that time actually came to pass. But either way, it's an extremely interesting experience. I don't know that it really has a deep meaning of, this is, once you do that, you're liberated, and you're basically seeing the hand of God or whatever. I don't think it's really that cut and dry. But it is a very interesting experience that kind of does help to dissolve boundaries, where if you can see yourself, whether you're seeing your body without you in it, or if you're seeing yourself in a mirror or in a dream state, that kind of severs a lot of the notions that you had about who you are and what your place in your environment is, if you can be in two places at once and see yourself.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, you mentioned that you saw yourself in the future. There's been a few questions in the chat about past lives. Have you seen yourself in the past?
I've done what's called past life regression, and I've guided people through that enough to know that it's really, really not reliable. If you look at, even Carl Jung put this forth that our minds are all connected, and there's a stream of consciousness that we're all linked into. It's really, since there's not a huge separation between my mind and my thoughts and yours, it would be very easy for me to get into theta brainwave state and to basically view somebody else's past life.
Yeah, oh my gosh, very good point. Hold that right there. It is that time, but we're going to be right back with a much longer segment, so stay tuned. E.A. Koetting on Truth Brigade Radio. Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. If you would like to join us in the text chat tonight, that's at TruthBrigade.com. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to give us a call at 402-237-2525. That's 402-AFR-2525. We are delving into the topic of soul travel with author and spiritual counselor, divination expert, and healer E.A. Koetting. You can find his books and, of course, the recently re-released Evoking Eternity at Lilah.org. That is LEILAH.org. And EA, before you went to the break, my goodness, you were talking about past lives and how that can be unreliable because of the stream of consciousness. And, I thought of what we were talking about in the last hour where you were talking about attachments. I mean, I guess it's possible to, if you have attachments to, say, a certain past lifetime, I mean, you may really think you were Napoleon and you may be even able to access all that information, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you were Napoleon.
Well, I mean, sure. The first past life regression that I saw for myself was that I was Jacques de Molay, who was one of the Knights Templar. He was the head of the Knights Templar, being burned at the stake. Who wouldn't love? Who in the occult wouldn't love to be Jacques de Molay in a past life? I'm not going to go around starting to claim that that's who I was, because that's.
And maybe it was.
Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, it's an interesting thing to look at. Now, I do recognize that we are reincarnated. Now, however, that's a tricky subject, because when we look at what composes our eternal self, our true identity, that thing that a lot of people will call your soul, that is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. It is the eternal. Now, there is no separation between the soul that's in me and the soul that's in you. So at all, when you go to that soul state, when you discover your God self, you recognize that it's one power that's flowing everywhere. So, for your individual consciousness to be reincarnated is a bit trickier, because you've got energy, you've got this God force that will leave the body once that body dies, and they can return to the body, return to another body at birth. But whether it carries any unique identity is really kind of tricky, and I don't think that occurs until much later on in spiritual progression, where you go through what I've called the AntiTrans migratory experience, which is basically that you have strengthened your astral body of light, your mental body, your causal body, and have also gained a full awareness of yourself as a realized being, and then can force yourself back into an incarnation with your identity intact. And I think that's something that perhaps a lot of people have done and are not aware of it. But as far as being able to look back into past lives and go, I was this or that or the other, a lot of that is that you're being drawn into what may have happened with somebody else's past life. And now about Donnie asked about why that doesn't appear in anything like Vodan, and it actually does. That you've got what's known on the surface a lot with systems like Vodan, which has been watered down and filtered down as voodoo presently, but you also have the initiated tradition, and the whole Vodan tradition is completely oral. Stuff that's written, even what I've written in The Spider and Green Butterfly, is really a brief look, because what's passed on from mentor to student a lot of times can never really be spoken about, and if it is, it's really there are selected bits of that information that can be revealed and that which cannot. But reincarnation is a definite practice or belief in not only Haitian Vodan, but also if you go back to the Dahomean tribes and the Congo, it's understood that there is reincarnation, and you'll see this with in the Congo, where if an old man dies on the same day a child is born, sometimes they will consider that that soul passed right from one to the other. What's really interesting is that they've also in the Congo have this understanding that a soul, an identity, can be reincarnated into a child's body before the deceased person who carries that soul passes away. So the infant can be introduced to the elder, whose soul is now in both of them simultaneously. I mean, because this whole concept of soul completely transcends time and space. Time and space are all a dot, on in any kind of real sense, rather than any kind of line. So it's really a mind-boggling thing to think about this whole reincarnation issue, because there are so many paradoxes that it encompasses.
Oh, absolutely. And you raise a lot of, a lot of questions. What do you think about walk-ins or soul swapping?
Well, walk-ins, that's, the term walk-in really puts a lot of missed reality where it's like, that you can just be hanging out and somebody will just bump into your body and, hey, here I am. Or that maybe you're off soul traveling and something else will enter, and that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen at all. Once again, for anything to enter your body and take control of your mind, your emotions, and your physical functions, you have to will it to happen 100%. For soul swapping, that could get really, really tricky, and there are some secrets in Haitian Vodun where you can do that, and you can force yourself into somebody's body, but the people that are actually capable of that are very few. There are probably only a dozen people that are even capable of that are living today, because the intense power that would take to be able to do that, as well as the secret knowledge of how to do it. So, so yeah.
Well, I've heard of situations where a child, maybe 7 years old or something, decides to trade places with someone else, and and I've seen it with same sex or opposite sex, male, female, and of course I wasn't there, so I can't exactly verify, but I know that they believe that this has happened, and I've also seen it confirmed, with like Dr. Larry Babcock and through his methods. One guest brought up that it might be an agreement that, we're talking about it here right now, and like, okay, you and I, EA, are going to agree to soul swap. Okay, maybe not likely, because as you said, not many people really know how to do that. But is it possible that we're making soul agreements perhaps that we're not aware of, and maybe perhaps doing this without being aware of it?
Well, it's really an interesting phenomenon, and there was this case. What was it? I think it was back in the 80s where a middle-aged woman got an organ transplant from a teenage boy, and as soon as she woke up after the transplant, she had all of the urges and appetites of a teenage boy. I mean, sexual appetites, and she wanted to go grab some hamburgers and fries and all these things that are like, that aren't necessarily appropriate for a middle-aged woman, but are for a teenage boy. And she had no idea where it was coming from. She didn't have a clue who her organ donor was. So you do have these. Almost like a transference of consciousness. Is not necessarily a soul swapping, but a transference of a degree of consciousness, which is different. I mean, we have to separate consciousness from soul. Soul being the eternal essence that in this moment is identified as you, versus consciousness, which is basically is really a function of the lower body and lower worlds.
Okay. Wow. Okay, here's a question in the chat. Does EA have some kind of school for beginners? So can you tell us, that I know you offer private consultations and such in addition to all of your books. So can you tell us what kind of services you offer and how we can take advantage of that?
Well, I when I became initiated as a Vodun Hungan, which is basically like a priest or a clergy member in the Vodun religion. Part of that is just like a clergy of any other religion is to serve people, and I, at one point I did consultations as far as tarot readings and whatnot for people professionally, and I stopped doing that for several years for several reasons, but that part of accepting that position as a Hungan made me have to re-embrace that and to help people that are asking for help. And so I've set up an organization. It's Eternal Ascent Consultations. You can check it out at www.eternalassentconsultations.com. And basically, people will come and say, I have this issue. What can you do? And there is definitely a fee schedule, and I'm going to tell you it's outrageous because I've been told what I'm able to charge because being a Vodun Hungan, I'm not a free agent as far as that goes. That I'm associated with a larger group, a much larger group. And they're like, okay, here are the services you can provide, which are basically, to do readings, energy work on people, do rituals on their behalf, custom tailor rituals for them, and there's a really specific kind of schedule for that or whatever. So yeah, it's not something that I do a lot because the charge is pretty intense. It's not something I'll do a whole lot, but when people really, really need it, that it's there, and they have taken advantage of that.
Okay.
So, and it's not a school of any sort. I'll write a ritual, or I'll give you advice. I'll help guide you. But I don't offer any kind of school for beginners. However,
but you have all those great books.
Right. Yeah. Well, and my books, I try to put them out in a way that's going to be accessible to everybody. With not only the fact that with Lila Publications, we're going to be putting more copies out, so it's not going to be a limited edition, and making them affordable, but also the way that they're written. I really try to make my books so people can understand them. You can put them into use immediately. There's not a lot of theory. Most of it is practice.
Okay. All right. Thanks for explaining that. Okay. So soul travel, big topic. Can you give us your best definition on what soul travel is?
Right. Yeah. Well, you've got the concept that's really popular and has been for a couple decades now of astral projection, that you project your consciousness into the astral plane. And you can go there and tinker around with the spirits that are there, or you can go on in your astral bodies anywhere on this plane and peep in on people doing whatever they're doing in their lives, and that's fine and dandy. But that's extremely restricted. If you look at the kind of map of existence, the astral plane is very close to the physical plane, and there are at least 12 other dimensions that can be accessed that are ascending towards godhood after that. So soul travel really is going to be you consciously traveling outside of your body and through these various realms, closer and closer to your true identity and to the eternal source, at which point you're going to gradually identify more and more with that eternal source rather than seeing it as an external force or entity. And so it's an amazing process where you're actually going to be traveling through, the most alien landscapes. You'll go into the astral plane, which is cluttered and crowded with spirits and goings on, and then to the causal plane, which is a bit calmer, but you still have a lot of the structures that you'll find here on Earth that are really closely resembling. The mental plane is a lot less so. You have less things that would represent anything that we understand here, and then you'll get to you'll cross what I've called the abyss, and what a lot of people have called the abyss in the occult, which is kind of like this dark realm between these lower worlds and true spiritual reality. It's called the first grand division between the two, and so you cross through that, and there's a lot of darkness, depression. You enter into what's called the dark night of the soul, where you really have to struggle with who am I, what's my place in things, what do I really believe, and really sort through that, and then you'll actually progress beyond that and find yourself in a place that you no longer have a form. You can't look down and see an astral or a mental body anymore. You can't see hands. You have no body. You are pure energy, pure power and spirit, without form, and at that point, then you start really embracing your omnipresence and omnipotence.
Okay, well, thanks for describing the different, I guess it would be a cycle or different levels that we might be experiencing in soul travel. Maybe you can talk about, I mean, I guess we hear about astral travel and then some of the questions before earlier tonight. If we can talk a little bit about practical application and what works for you, but it is that time, so we'll be right back. Stay tuned, everyone. E.A. Koetting here on Truth Brigade Radio. All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com with our special guest tonight, E.A. Koetting, talking about time travel. And once again, the website is lilah.org. That is LEILAH.org. And if you have any questions or comments, 402-AFR-2525, and join all the fun in the text chat. That's over at truthbrigade.com. And big shout out to everyone there. And a big special shout out to an old friend, my goodness, 30-something years joining us all the way from Mexico. So welcome, dear. Anyways, okay, so we're talking about soul travel and I guess practical application. I know everyone has their methods and, you know, perhaps it's not exactly set into stone, but if you could share with us maybe some of the things that you used that make you successful in your journeys.
Yeah, now with practical application, you know, there are obviously a variety of things that we could go with that, but and how I've learned to soul travel is really pretty amazing, because it took me years and years of really trying to, you know, astral project. I remember when I was, you know, 14 or 15, I had a friend whose grandma, you know, identified herself as a witch, and she would always talk about that she could astral travel, and that how she would do that is she would think of she would focus her mind on a place or a person that she would want to see, and she would focus on it without using any words at all, without having any kind of internal dialogue about it, and that she would just find herself, you know, plop, and she's there in spirit where she wants to go, and that was kind of a really interesting and possibly not very accurate thing for me to hear, but it definitely sparked my interest. And I've always had that happen where people just come to me and give me information that really sparks something that I'll take and run with, and that was something that was big. And so from then on, I basically researched it and tried to put it into practice and learned everything I could about all these techniques of astral travel. And I actually didn't get it until I was 20 years old, and I had minor successes where you know I could mentally project, where I could imagine that I'm seeing these things, and that I could really you know, I could make out details, or I could tell somebody what color of shirt they're wearing, or whatever, and that, you know, it's kind of more of a remote viewing than an actual projection. But there was one particular instance, the first time that I actually, I don't even want to call it projection. I would call it more of a jump, where I jumped out of my body and to another location. I was I live in southern Utah, in this valley area, and I was up by the airport, which is on a plateau, looking down at the city, and I breathed in and was in this kind of standing meditation, and I looked out probably a good 20 miles away from me at a specific street, and it was about 7 o'clock in the morning in October, so there was a little bit of fog kind of floating around on the streets, and there weren't too many people out. So I focused on this one particular spot on the street, and just in a split second pushed myself towards that spot. And there wasn't any real travel to speak of, where I didn't really have to, leave my body. I didn't have to visualize that I'm pulling myself out of a chakra or anything like that. It's, in an instant I was soaring towards that spot, and boom, I'm there. And viewing it just as I would in my physical body, there's this experience that's talked about a lot with a lot of ancient prophets, and not even ancient, but it's back in the 1800s and past, where people who had these spiritual experiences would say that they were caught up in a vision, or that they went from where they were at to another place, and they can't tell whether their body went with them or not. And that's basically what the experience was like. Was I'm standing on the street and I'm going, well, the experience was so real and so instant that it almost felt as if I'd been teleported there. But my body wasn't physical. It didn't. The physical world didn't respond to my presence there.
Hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
I'm here. Look at me, everyone.
Yeah, I'm still working on that. But yeah, with a sharp inhalation, I zipped back to my body, and I'm back in my body, and just shaken by the whole experience. And I thought, wow, let's do that again. So, throw myself down to another spot, and I'm watching this guy come out and get in his car, get his car warmed up, getting ready for work, and just not really doing anything or seeing anything important, but just wow, look at this, and I really took that and started applying that to being able to jump out of my body, and instead of focusing on a spot on the street, miles away, focus on a spot in another dimension, or focus on, somebody in the chat room asked about dealings with ascended masters. You focus on an ascended master, and you can jump and find yourself with that being. It's really it's been an amazing experience for me, because it was it was one after several years of struggling with this. And the key really was to just letting go. Once again, you've got the law of reversed effort, where if you're struggling and you're pushing, you're going, come on, get out of your body, you're not going to do it. As soon as you just go, okay, give it up, give up the desire, and just do it. If you ever say, I tried to astral projection, I tried to soul travel, I got to come back at you with, the Yoda thing of there is no try. There's do or do not.
Yes, do exactly. Let me ask you this, though, regarding soul travel. Isn't it, aren't we doing that naturally anyways, whether we're aware of it or not, maybe through our dream time or...
That's probably the best question I've ever heard about the subject, Christie, because we are. When you look at the fact that we are composed of several different bodies, those bodies are active in those other realms all the time. It's not like your spiritual bodies, your various spiritual bodies, just funnel all their attention here, and they're concerned about the stoplights that you're paying attention to with your eyes. They're doing their own thing most of the time, unconscious to you. And so what you're doing what you're doing when you quote unquote soul travel is you're consciously linking up with what's naturally occurring anyways, and then you're focusing it on one specific spot.
Okay. It's just funny when I hear, I want to astral travel, or then you'll hear the other side that like, oh my gosh, that's evil, you're going to hell, or that's of Satan, or something like that. But it's like, get real, people. We're doing it all the time, whether you're aware of it, whether your conscious mind wants to recognize it or not. And it's totally natural. In fact, specifically our dream time, I was having a discussion with someone earlier today, in fact, who I guess is of the line of belief, thanks to public education, that our dreams are just, it's our mind playing tricks on us. and they don't really mean anything, and we're not really doing anything. But I got to tell you, when we sleep, we're supposed to be rested, but I'm busy. I'm busy out there. I'm not sure how much rest I'm getting. So can you give us a little insight on our dreams? I mean, what's really going on there, of course, besides traveling?
Yeah, well, let's. I want to address also the fact that this is evil, and that this is of the devil and whatnot.
Yeah.
People who say that obviously don't even know their own scriptures, because the Apostle Paul built his whole knowledge of spirituality off of soul travel. You'll notice he'll say in all of his letters, the letter to the Ephesians and the Colossians and the Thessalonians, he'll say, "I am not with you, but I saw you yesterday, and here's what you were doing." Like, whoa, wait a minute, how does this guy know what's going on? Or he said that he traveled to the third heaven, and there he saw heavenly men, and he's talking about this exact thing. And his secret to spirituality was to die daily. Now, when you die daily, you're basically putting your body away daily, and you're going into what most people would consider the afterlife. Well, it's not an afterlife if you're going there while you're alive.
Yeah, it's here currently now, all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, the Apostle Paul, who basically wrote half of the New Testament, is saying that this is the key to spirituality, is soul travel. And then you also have all through the Old Testament, Ezekiel and Isaiah and Daniel, all these prophets that are very clearly soul traveling, and that's where they're getting a lot of these visions from, is in their soul travel state. So if people think that that's evil, well, then they really need to take a look at their own scriptures, because that's just silly.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Very good point.
Now, as far as what's going on in your sleep, Sleep is complicated, because there are various processes that are going on while you're asleep, and you do have the psychological processes where you're going through your daily life and analyzing, what happened. You're basically filtering through all of your experiences through the day and whatever. That does happen. That's a real process. But there's also a more subtle process that's taking place, which is that you're somewhere else. And my first mentor, Baba Maharaja, a gentleman from India that taught me a good deal of what I know about Hinduism and yoga. When I was 16, actually, he asked me if when I wake up suddenly, do I feel an electrical shock go through my body, which I do almost every time I wake up, especially if it's not a timed waking up. It'll feel like somebody just hooked a battery up to my fingers, and my whole body just jolts. And he kind of guided me through a few of these questions of, what do you feel upon waking up, and it all basically led to the fact that there's an energy, an electricity that was absent from my body that re-entered it as soon as I regained consciousness. And wow, this is really something. And if you look at the visionary state, when people get into visions, let's say if you do it quite artificially, where if you'll go into a sensory deprivation tank, a lot of people will have what they consider visions while they're in that sensory deprivation tank. Almost always, they don't have any kind of real coherency until they return, until they leave the tank, and then they're able to analyze it, and then their mind will start putting these symbols in. Oh, I saw a cross, and I saw Mary, and hey, Buddha was there. Whatever their particular paradigm is, they'll go ahead and insert afterwards these symbols to make it make sense. And so a lot of times what we'll do when we wake up from a dream is we'll have this dream, and immediately upon waking we'll go, oh my God, yeah, this is what happened, and you'll have this experience of, wow, I was with loved ones, and whatever your experience was. Then you'll start analyzing it after you've been awake and putting these symbols into it.
I totally understand, but I'm going to admit here, I have no clue what happened. So we're trying to figure that out, but it's that time. We are going to be right back. E.A. Koetting on Truth Brigade Radio. All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com, talking about soul travel tonight with author and spiritual teacher and healer E.A. Koetting. Lila.org is where you can find his books. And, of course, he re-released Evoking Eternity. That is available now through pre-order at Lila.org. That's LEILAH.org. And, gosh, last segment here tonight, EA, but if you could just finish up, we were talking about dreaming and what you think is really going on there.
Okay, yeah. With those two main processes, which are the spiritual and the psychological, they kind of collide when you wake up and you have time for your conscious mind to start analyzing everything. And that's, I think, what causes some of the issues and really shuts you out from being able to take seriously what you're experiencing in the dream state. Is you kind of have to weed through a lot of the subconscious blabber that's going on in your head to be able to find the reality of things. And you know, in my book Questing After Visions, which is also still available at Amazon, to go ahead and put a little plug in there, I talk about using dreams and lucid dreaming as a way to receive revelations from the spirit world. And the first step in that is to keep a dream journal. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be consciously weeding through the recurring symbols and that psychological blabber that's going on. You're going to be reading through that and seeing, what's constant and what's really important in your dreams. But more than that, through writing it down, you're setting the intention. My dreams have meaning enough for me to look at and analyze. And as you start setting that intention, your dreams will respond, just like anything will when you set intentions like that. Your dreams will respond and become more meaningful, and a lot of that blabber is going to be removed, and you're going to start finding that you don't need to insert the symbols anymore. That you come back and you go, holy crap, I was not here. I wasn't just in the dream state, but I was at this other place, or I viewed this, that, the other, or had a conversation with this master or deceased relative, or whatever it is that you need to experience at that moment.
Okay, very good. I wish we had more time to talk about that. We're kind of winding down here, but here was a great comment in the chat. I'd love to have you respond to this. It says, the first time I tried astral travel, it worked easily, but the experience surprised me and scared me so much that after that, whenever I try, my head twitches like crazy, and I still haven't figured out how to stop this reflex. Do you have any advice for this listener?
Well, if your head is twitching crazily, that could be a problem. I don't want to not to alarm you, but you might want to get something checked out with a physician if your head is twitching, because I've never had that experience. However, what I feel often, if I haven't been soul traveling and I've kind of gotten into the rut of life and I go back at it again, is this extreme imbalance in my internal equilibrium, where I feel like my feet just fall through the floor. I feel like I'm spinning around in circles. Completely lose all sense of spatial awareness, and that's extremely uncomfortable. And then when you actually do come out of it and you push yourself out, you jump out of your body, it is extremely startling, and it can definitely throw you off the path. I'm one of those people that I get scared of things for sure, but that doesn't keep me from doing them. That I see fear as a warning. It's not telling you to stay away from something, but it's warning you that there is a danger inherent in it. So it really it depends on your personality. I'm the type that if I get scared of something, I go, okay, well that's something that I need to deal with and push forward. And the fear becomes a motivator to me rather than a detractor.
Yeah, I think maybe sometimes it's that fear of letting go. We're fully trusting maybe that we are safe. Because I know, either crossing over or coming back, there's sometimes that uncomfortable, I'm pissed because I got to get back in my body again, or, oh, what the heck was that? How did I get here? So, try to remove that fear. But, gosh, we're almost out of time. So, EA, we mentioned your book you're releasing in October, Ipsissimus, which is exactly the topic we're talking about tonight, soul travel. Can you give us a little insight onto that?
Yeah, the book is really my experiences with the mystical state, where my previous works have been all about magic and ritual, and this is kind of the other side of it. It's the pure spirituality, not really looking to cause change and to have power, but more just figuring out what it's all about, figuring out what I'm about and what's going on in spiritual reality, and then really uncovering the layers of all of that and penetrating through those. And the key to all of that is soul travel. And like I said, with the Apostle Paul and with just about every religion, if you look in it, that's kind of the main thread is getting out of your body and moving into these other worlds and bringing those experiences back here. So that's really what Ipsissimus focuses on, is that soul travel state and the millions of conundrums that come along with getting into those states of being.
All right. Wow. Well, I am so sorry we are out of time, EA. There was so much more I wanted to get into tonight, but I hope to have you back soon. Always such a pleasure to have you here with us, sharing your time and your wisdom. Once again, Lilah.org is where you can find his books. That's LEILAH.org or EternalAscentConsultations.com. Thank you again, EA, and thank you all for being here tonight. Abundant blessings and love to all. We will see you tomorrow night, and stay tuned. Project Camelot coming up next. Good night.
A very well